Thank you so much for joining me today, Ben and Camille. How are you two doing?
As
Great.
well, doing great.
We are so excited to talk about Clybourne Park. As I was telling Camille last time, I read this back in college, and this is
Right.
one of my favorite plays. I've never seen it live, but it was one of my favorite plays to read, and so I'm super excited to see this open up. Well, it's already been open, but you've been running for 2 weeks now. But or you just had your opening weekend. I apologize.
Yeah, it's been great.
So, Camille, how has that experience been so far? That opening weekend?
Oh wow, it's all the things. It's exhilarating, it's exhausting. It's I mean, you're anxious and nervous and excited all at the same time. And I guess in the end, it's rewarding to kind of see everything finally come together and kind of meet this journey with your cohorts and finally get to see the end product and see all the work kind of pay off. So it's been a wild ride. It's interesting. It's fun. I'm exhausted still, but I'm already ready for Friday.
It's like a good kind of exhaustion, you know? It's like
Yeah,
that energetic,
yeah.
like I've given everything and this is the best it's going to be and it's going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. We're already talking in the group chat about how much we miss each other already because we're used to seeing each other all the time for rehearsal and every day for tech week. And now it's like, I miss them. So, yeah, I'll be excited to get back Friday.
Ben, what was kind of that experience? You know, you got to see the final product out on stage for that opening weekend. That had to be just as exhilarating to see it all come together.
Oh man, it was incredible. As a director, you're always like when I directed my very first show, that my mentor at the time, he goes, "Oh, welcome to directing. We start drinking at noon," and it's just such an intense thing. You have to really take it into your life, whatever piece you're working on. And so for me, I always have to be very passionate about what the project is because it requires so much. So getting through this rehearsal process, getting into tech, going, getting it to where it finally needs to be, and seeing it fulfilled, and then you're like, okay, I think it's good. This is the worst part of the direction is this. You're at a point where like, okay, I think this is good. I'm laughing. I'm having a great time. And then you go, maybe no one else will like it. Maybe I've only done a show that I will like. And that's all, which to be real is kind of all you can do. Like as a director, that's as long as you put that amount of passion into it and be like, I've done something that I'm proud of and that fulfills me, is really all you can do. Because I can't guarantee audience response ever. But getting to finally see that for this show last weekend was really special. The audience ate it up. And seeing the actors finally feed on that energy, that's so rewarding. That their laughs are landing, the emotional moments are hitting hard, and you can genuinely, with live theater, you could feel that live energy in the room, and it was such a great weekend, such a great weekend.
I always kind of think of it as like when you're like you have children and then like they turn 18, you got to send them out into the world. That's kind of what it is every time you
Yes, yeah. Chris Cluntz, it's such an ensemble piece, so nobody's the lead. But in Act One, you would say he's probably the lead of Act One. Um, he was saying, he's like, okay, you've now given us this baby, and we're just gonna make sure we don't drop the baby. And I'm like, I'm sitting there like, please don't drop the baby, like, so wonderful. Like all seven of my cast is they're all wonderful. Camille is fantastic. It's I don't ever doubt it, really. Like I don't ever doubt what they're gonna do and how they're gonna execute it. It's a really special cast. Yeah.
I think that speaks to like this play again. I've not seen it live, but just reading it, it is an incredible piece of work to just, and so I can only imagine being able to kind of carry that when you have such a strong script and then you have strong actors. I don't want to say it's easy, but it makes the job a little bit easier to have that.
Yeah, I would say that's 90% of it. Casting is 90% of the hard work of directing. And it's difficult. That doesn't mean that it's that last 10% is suddenly easy, but you can it sets you up to complete that last 10%. Whereas if you've miscast it or you don't have the right person or whatever, all of the X factors that fall into it, you won't be able to complete that last 10%. Um, and I've been grateful every day at the end of every rehearsal. Like, wow, it's my first show that I've directed in Michigan. And so it's my first kind of exposure to the Michigan community acting group and Farmington Players, and especially, and I've just been over the moon with the professionalism, with the work ethic, with just the raw talent and the passion. If I can just put it on Camille here for a second, in the auditions, she came in and was like, "This play is very special to me," and she was very vocal about, not just as an actor would be with, and I want to book a role, or it's exciting to, that actor energy, but genuinely like, this play, and for these reasons. And I played in Raisin in the Sun in college, and to connect it all back together, like just that level of connection to it, there's no substitute for that. And it's showing in Camille's performance. It's really remarkable.
So Camille, you knew awesome. Like you had to be in this. You like when you saw that this was coming, you're like, I have to do this.
Yeah, I think my daughter was probably the final catalyst to kind of like, Ma, go back and audition, because I've been away from Farmington Players for a couple of years. And then when I saw what it was, and as Ben said, the connection to A Raisin in the Sun, I'm like, all right, I kind of gotta, I at least gotta try, I at least gotta audition. And so I was so grateful to get the role for that reason, because it's kind of like full circle for me to be able to be a part of telling the rest of that story, at least in the first act. But I definitely applaud Ben for his sensitivity to the sensitive pieces of the play, and for really hand-holding me through that, because there were a lot of moments where I'm like, no, I don't think we would say that, or we wouldn't do that, or we wouldn't act that way. And he was like, the role. And I had to really separate myself, Camille, from the role. And as he would say, and especially in the first act, understand the station of Francine and understand what she had the freedom to do or not do, or say or not say in that time. So I just applaud him for taking such a strong-willed woman like me and holding her steady so she could see and deliver the role authentically. And I think that's kind of what the end result has been.
It's kind of cool though that, like, again, with that collaborative approach of actor and director, of being able to, he's like, let's look at it through this lens and see, this is what how your character would be, and you get to take that back and, like you said, make it more authentic, and that makes it more beautiful of a performance.
There were a couple of moments like that where I felt safe to say, Ben, Black people wouldn't do that, or Black people wouldn't say that. And he would really consider, like, well, okay, well, wait. And then we had to think about, well, why would the playwright put that in there? What's the motivation behind it? So I had an understanding as to how to play certain things. So his just overall sensitivity and commitment to authenticity, I think, was really important, and was really one of the reasons that I think the play is just as phenomenal as it is.
Speaking of the play and stuff, what is kind of the story, Camille? Because maybe there are some people who aren't familiar. I didn't know until we were talking last time that it was like connected to A Raisin in the Sun, which was like, oh, I have to go back and I have to, see that again and experience that. So what's kind of going on in Clybourne Park? And who are you playing in that?
It's a lot going on in Clybourne Park. Well, I am playing Francine and Lena, and in the first half, I'm playing Francine, who is the housekeeper to a white family who is living at the time in a predominantly white neighborhood, but they have inadvertently sold their home to the first Black family of that neighborhood. And the first Black family that is moving into that neighborhood is the family from A Raisin in the Sun, who moves into a white neighborhood at the end of that particular play. In the second half of this play, this is 50 years later, in 2009, Obama's in his first year of the presidency, and we are dealing with now, being a predominantly black neighborhood, and now a white family is moving into that same neighborhood, into that same house. And there is this resistance from my character, Lena, because her great aunt was the one who bought that home. And the white family that's coming in kind of represents the gentrification of that particular neighborhood. So it's kind of the underlying theme is real estate and grief and all the things around that. But on top of all of that, it's just, and I said it before, it's a lot of talking, a lot of conversation, but not a lot of listening. And you'll see that we talk a lot in this play. There's a lot of talking throughout the entire play. And what I think it shows better than anything is the power of conversation, be it a tool or a weapon.
I mean, that's a beautiful answer to that
Yeah.
to that question. And I mean, it shows just how complex this play is and how many layers there are to kind of have to dive through. And Ben, when you kind of got that script, like, I'm guessing, like, what about this play to you was just like, I have to direct this show? Like, what was it about that just really stood out to you?
There were several things. I love plays that I love that plays that have a deeper meaning and a deeper commentary without resorting to becoming a lecture or a thesis play, if you will. Like, I wrote this play to make this point, and over the course of this essay, I will tell you all of the reasons. And there are a lot of plays like that, and some of those are actually great plays, but they're not. They don't really speak to me. It's like, okay, I can read that. You read that academically. You read that in school, and you don't ever actually see. For me, I'm like, I don't ever need to see that performed. I just read it, and I go, okay, cool, I got it, and I'm done. So for me, I'm always drawn to pieces that have a stage presence, have an engagement, have, as you know, Camille was talking about the dialogue, how much of it there is, and the rhythm and the music that exists in that is so engaging. And to me, I mean, you've read it. To me, that comes through on the page. And I was like, this is, there's a rhythm to this. There's a humor to this that you wouldn't think of when somebody describes the plot itself. You're like, okay, this sounds like a very serious, very stoic take on race and time and how have our communities
Racism.
changed? Yeah, and racism and it just and it manages to touch that and comment on it without giving you a clean answer, because they're acknowledging that there kind of is no clean answer, but just more shining a light on the circumstances as they are, making you laugh along the way, making you relate to characters that you didn't think you were going to relate to. I think that one of the great things about both acts of the play kind of is, it's two reflective halves in these two time periods. And for me, I read it and I was like, oh, I'm going to connect to, I identified, I'm like, I think this is the one. He's going to be my guy along the way. And then in the course of each hour of each act, I went, oh, but I'm connecting to this person. Oh, now I'm connecting to the person who's saying some really troublesome things even. You have there's no good and bad in the play necessarily, but there are people that certainly have viewpoints of their time, if you will call them that. In Act 1, we can flat out call it racist views, but you can't play him like a villain. And even then, in some of what he's saying, you're like, I get the point. You just have such a terrible view on it. Like you're the baseline, what you're talking about might be true, except that you're reflecting it through this lens that that this couple is less than. And that's fascinating, and you have to reckon with that along the way. My dog is behind me. She wants to get involved in the conversation. And that happens. I think in the Act 1 is obviously easier. That example is easier to separate from, because you're like, well, it's 70 years ago. It's obviously more overtly racist. It's more overtly, segregated and all of that. But in Act 2 is where it starts to get muddy. Like the Steve character becomes, you're like, well, I do wish we could have this conversation more openly.
Yeah.
I do wish that we could just say things. You don't say it the way he says it. You don't, you know, you don't. There's a tactfulness and a
Yep.
discourse that is required. But you also can't just fully dismiss him. You can't just be like, okay, that's an
Hmm.
absurdity. Um, but I think the play challenges that everyone's viewpoints in coming into it. You're going to identify with certain people. You're going to have there's really really beautiful emotional moments that happen along the way.
Hmm.
Um, I call them the interstitial moments that there's a lot of the play is 6 or 7 people on stage at all times, and so when that's happening, obviously the audience can look anywhere they want. People are talking over here, but on the other side of the stage, Camille and Kyle will be standing, and they'll have this whole moment, this whole listening, reacting moment to what's going on stage that is so full and so lived in and tells its own story, that I can't direct that. I
Hmm.
can't. It's something that happens at a point in the rehearsal process where that I get them to. Like my job, the director gets you
Hmm.
to that point of rehearsal, of understanding, of character analysis, and all of that. But I can't direct it for 2 reasons. One, there's no way that I could actually just tell them to do that. I'm like, okay, so now while he's talking and then he says this thing, you guys need to have this really poignant look at each other, because if I say that, it won't happen organically. It'll become a different
Right.
thing. But
Right.
so it has to come from the actors, and then once it's there, it just rounds out the stage, and it fills out the story. That's what I mean by the interstitial. Like it's what connects the thing and makes it real and creates this really powerful moment. So there's a lot of that happens, both in a poignant way and also in a very funny way. There's a ton of like sometimes something will be going on and I'm laughing, and we've been in rehearsals and they're like, "What are you laughing at?" I'm like, "Oh, it has nothing to do with you. I'm looking at Kelly over here and just her face. Like she's listening to you guys and reacting, and it's hilarious, and it has nothing to do with what's going on." So that's really special. I have no idea what the original question was anymore because I've been talking and enjoying just telling the story. But I just love the play. I'm a big fan of the play.
That's interesting that you say that because we hear Ben out in the audience laughing, and we're like, "Are you kidding me? He's seen this 100 times. Why is he still laughing at this?" I mean, like cracking up, and he has a very distinct laugh, so everybody on stage can hear it. And we all go back in the dressing room, like, "Did you guys hear Ben laughing again?" And then he'll come back and tell us that, like, "Oh no, you guys didn't see when Kyle did such and such and so and so, or when Kelly did," and we're like, "Oh, okay." But it's all it seems to be always new and fresh, and that's good. The other thing that you said, Ben, that I think is really important to bring out is that it is funny. There are just hilarious moments in there, and it's reminiscent of back in the day when my grandma used to try to give us medicine that was horrible, and she'd give you something sweet to go with it, to kind of mask the taste. It's kind of those moments. I think that humor helps the audience have those conversations and sit in those moments more comfortably, than they would if it were just, like you said, Ben, straight lecture or what have you. And so those humorous moments are needed. I think they're needed for the actors too, because some of it is really heavy. So when we get those moments, we really just have fun with it. But yeah, I guess that is the thing to remember, that it is funny. And also when you said about being, I forgot how you said it, but the thing that I've been telling people is that there are no heroes and no victims. There's nobody that you could point at and be like, okay, there we're the clean winner. No, it's not like that.
Yeah.
Everybody has their moment. They have their time to shine, or to make their point. But you could point to any one character and say, you know what, they got a point there. Nobody was totally wrong. Nobody was totally right. So yeah, it's complex, but it's really a fun ride. And it sounds so contradictory, but it's true.
But that's what makes it
I,
special. That contradiction is what makes it special.
Hmm. I agree.
I think that's what also makes it human too. Is that like we're all
Mm.
full of contradictions. Not everything is always black and white. Like a lot of plays, you know, you have a hero, you have a villain. That's what people love to see in stories. But as humans, we all make mistakes. We all do wrong things. We all have reasons to be upset, you know. And so I feel like when you're talking about this, all these moments and these conflicts, and even just these, they're so human, and they're so like they're almost lived in characters. Like, you're just like assuming these people that are almost real in a way.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
That was always my goal, so to speak. And as a director, not just even with this play, but that's what I try to find in plays, is serve the story that's there, but find the humanity in it. And this play is very, very human. It's very, very in yes, the serious ways, but also in just the really wonderful moments that happen. There's love in this play. There's pain in this play. There's really, really funny humor that's, you know, some more slapsticky 1950s sitcom-y, and then there's really funny humor that's really dark and makes you go, "Ooh, okay, that's hilarious," but
Like,
ooh,
that's
you know,
gonna leave a mark.
ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it really, it's that's what I always strive for, is to find that humanity and to try to bring that out. And this cast has done me so proud. I mean, I can't rave about them enough.
You know, and Camille, when you mentioned about like, in therapy we call it sandwiching. Like, we tend to sandwich the hard truths with something that is easier to swallow. And you know, you said about like your grandmother kind of trying to get you to take the nasty medicine, like that. It is easier to reflect on those things when we don't have to feel so weighed down by the fact that they are heavy things. Like, there's a lot of heavy topics in this play, but if you can kind of laugh about it, you're going to think about it a little bit more, because we tend to remember those positive things than we do necessarily the negative feelings as we leave a play.
Oh, I love that. I think it's those moments are also important because, and I don't know if you've picked up on this, Ben, but there are moments that happen during the play where the audience isn't sure whether they should laugh or not, you know? And so you hear that hesitancy or that snicker. And so the moments that are just evident that they can laugh, it's almost like a relief. Like, okay, I know I can laugh at that. That was funny, you know? So I think that it's interesting to watch how humor plays a part in this piece, but I think Bruce Norris was very wise to balance it that way. And I think it's what allows the topic to be better absorbed, because that humor is just kind of like, and there are certain characters, you know, they're going to do something crazy. You just watch for it. You know, you just watch for it. And I'm thinking of Kelly in Act 2. You know she's going to say something wild.
Yeah.
So you just kind of wait for it. And that's like your comic relief. And that message still gets in, but it's cushioned or sandwiched, as you say, by that humor to help you digest it easier.
Absolutely.
So, Camille, I'm interested in the fact, because you do play, like you said, you play two different characters, you know, in like Act 1 and Act 2. Do you have specific like ways of like developing those characters, or is it pretty much the same as like when you Act 1 to Act 2 of developing and making those characters real for you? Or is it like they're very distinct when it comes to making them?
They are very distinct due to the time period that both of them are in. And Ben worked very diligently with me to understand the station of Francine in the first half. Because that was a very tough transition for me. But what I realized in preparing for both of them is that they are more alike than different. Both of them have an extraordinary amount of strength. I think for Francine, her strength came in restraint. She was able to take the hits of what was coming at her, understanding the station she was in, absorb the microaggressions and the sarcasm and all the things that she had to take. That took a strength to be able to endure that and not snap back, which could have, at that time, cost her life. And then fast forward to Lena on the other side, understanding that she had a strength too, where she had more freedom than Francine did. It takes courage to speak up and to stand 10 toes down on what you believe and what you think is right, especially as a Black woman, and not be labeled as the angry black woman, or all the things that come with that. So both of them were very strong characters, and both taught me a lot. To prepare more for Francine, I watched a lot of old movies from that time and that era. I even watched some old I Love Lucy for whatever reason, just to kind of put myself in that 50s mindset. And then for current day, in my head, I'm like, that wasn't that long ago. I remember 2009. I just went back on my Facebook feed to 2009 and looked at what I was doing during that time, and what I was wearing, what music I was listening to kind of remind myself of what that time was like. And then thinking about that being Obama's first year, I remember being very, very excited and ecstatic that that had happened, but also very, very afraid. I remember African Americans being extremely afraid that he was going to be hurt, or, assassinated or killed. And there have been a lot of pieces about that. So I remember that time well. So I just kind of leaned into that more so for Francine. It was an interesting time of preparation. But again, I applaud Ben for helping make the distinction between those women and really hand-holding me through formulating who those women were going to be on stage.
And Ben, that leads me to ask you, so you have basically what is essentially like two plays here. You have two different characters. You have a lot of things you're kind of bouncing here. When you walk into that theater, what's your process for developing that from like a director standpoint?
Well, that's a great question. The simple answer is, expanding on what I was saying earlier, trying to serve the story. Bruce Norris has all the blueprints laid out. If you're going to build a house, you have the blueprints all laid out. All you need to do is serve those blueprints. So, in a very reductive way, that's cool. I just need to execute what's here. The more ethereal way, or the more instinctual way, it is dissecting the motivations of each character in each act, because and building it from there and going, okay, so here we are. Like you break everything down. Most plays, even if it's a 2-act play, 5-act play, 1-act play, whatever it is, have multiple scenes. Like Act 1, Scene 1, Act 1, Scene 2, Act 1, Scene 3, intermission. This is Act 1, 1 hour in real time. Act 2, 1 hour in real time. And with 7 people. So finding the rhythm of that, finding the stopping points, just to give them, if nothing else, just to give the actors something manageable to work on. Just took, let's just break it down. Okay, cool. We have this little exchange between these two characters, and it's half a page long. But okay, we're going to work on that and fill that out, and then you thread out from there. There are kind of two phases of a director's work as it pertains to the actors, or the storytelling aspect of it, not the non-technical stuff. And the first part of it begins, I should say, long before you even hold auditions. And it's the analysis, the script's scene study of it, the let's break this down. What are the themes of this? I have these 2 acts. It's obviously been written so that the same actor plays 2, so there's already some connection there that's given based on the casting. They're going to see this actress knowing she played the person in Act 1, right? So why is that? Why was it written that way? Why did he have that actress play this part and that part? So you really study it in that college theater 101 way. And that process continues throughout rehearsals. There are we were several weeks into rehearsal, and we'd be having a discussion, and this is the beauty of the art. We'd be having a discussion, and just Camille, because she's here, she'd be like, "Hey, what about this?" And I would be like, "Oh my gosh!" It suddenly clicks. I'm like, "That's what that is, that I've been thinking about for 6 months, trying to that's what that's what that magical moment happens." So that's the first part, is coming at it from that I keep calling it the academic side, the intellectual side. And then the second part is in executing that with the actors. So now we convey, okay, I have my vision I have my own ideas for what that connection is, or for what the music of the piece is going to be. How do we build that out? How do you write a symphony note by note? So if the symphony's already written, but how do you we have to look at the score and practice those notes. The notes build in a certain way, a script builds in a certain way, and we find it. And that music, the music that's in my head, is translated through the instrument of the actors. And the flex. And my belief is a good director is flexible in that what's in my head is not always right. What's in my head is just what's in my head. But what's in my head is not Camille. I'm not her. I'm not built as her. So I have something and I hear it and I'm like, okay, so I think a trap as a director is to be like, no, it needs to sound, is when you get into those line reading notes of like, no, it needs to sound exactly like this. You got to say da 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 da. But then you hear her say it and go, oh my gosh, that her viewpoint on it, her intention, her understanding of this by way of her own instrument highlights something totally different and totally new or deeper or what pick your I don't know, pick your adjective there. And it's really wonderful. So for me, so my job is coming at it from all that analysis and then synthesizing that analysis through the actors, while also being flexible enough to trust their art, trust their instinct, and their soul is going to come through to make this a real thing. And it's as simple and as insanely complicated as that,
So then one final question for both of you, and Camille, I'm going to start with you before I let you go, is just,
Okay.
with so many beautiful themes, with so much depth, what are you hoping audiences take away from this theatrical experience of Clybourne Park?
Oh man, I got a list. But one of the things that I do, but one of the things that jumps out is that progress isn't linear. It comes with a lot of hills and valleys and bumps and bruises and detours, and it's not a straight line. And if we're going to move forward as a culture, as a community, as humanity, we've got to stay on the ride long enough with each other to hear each other out and to hear those conversations. One of the things I learned back with a guy I used to date a long time ago, long time ago, just in case my husband watches this, long time ago, is that he rode motorcycles. And when I would get on with him, he would say, when I lean, you got to lean. Because otherwise, if you're standing up straight when I lean, the pressure against you will kill us both. And what I learned, and what I hope people take away from this, is that we kind of got to lean into this together. We've got to lean into trying to understand racism and the gentrification issues and how we talk to each other and what we can learn from each other. And some of the things that Kelly says at the end of her scene is, if we could just sit down and talk and have a meal and really get to know one another. I hope people go away thinking that, I want to make an effort. I want to make an effort to know more, to do better, and to understand others with intentionality. So I know that was a long way around, but yeah.
No, that was a beautiful answer. Like that, I think that is a huge and important takeaway from this play. And Ben, I'm so sorry that you have to follow in that footsteps there. That was such a great answer.
Oh, yeah. Ben's gonna bring it. Trust me.
Well, I wouldn't really say anything too different from that. I would just piggyback on that and say that, discourse is essential. It's not important. It is essential. and we have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able to
Yeah.
listen and hear things, that are that we don't agree with, and hear things that make us uncomfortable, and hear things that if we just stay in our bubbles. Like that's part of the reason this play for me right now is so important. And then
Yes.
not to get political, because I am apolitical on this, but certain events in the last couple of weeks uh, timed out rather. I was like, oh, our play talks about that, the
Yeah.
willingness to hear somebody, and that you can't remove that. You can't remove that from the equation. And as Camille brought up earlier, there are no heroes and there are no victims, and therefore nobody's right. Nobody can sit
Right.
on a soapbox and say, I am right on this subject,
Hmm.
and you all must listen to what I say, and I don't have to listen to you. It's like, no, oh, that's your viewpoint. That's interesting. Camille and I had some really wonderful conversations just in diving into it, and I consider myself a sympathetic and empathetic person. Of like, I have empathy for other people, but I only know what I know. And so hearing other people's viewpoints is essential. And this play really speaks to that, because you observe these people trying to communicate and trying to, oftentimes just trying to be right. And that's the mistake. They're all trying to be right instead of trying to hear each other. And I think we can all learn from that.
I think that one of the things that we say, I'm a couples therapist on top of everything else. So one of the things we talk about in couples therapy is, well, first off, do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? And then, but also, are you listening to understand and comprehend, or are you listening to just respond? And I feel like a lot of times we are just listening to have a response, like you said. Like,
Mm,
people just want to be heard, and so we're just responding, but we're not always understanding other people.
yeah.
Wow.
And we can always grow in that direction. You can always reach deeper into understanding. That to me is what it is to be human, is to try to reach out and connect and understand.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Camille and Ben, for being here and talking with me. So Clybourne Park runs at Farmington Players now until October 5th. So get your tickets now, and we'll see you at the show.